Hey everybody, it's me, Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game here. It's called Monstrous, and this is a game of battling gods using ancient mythological creatures to do their battles for them. This is a dexterity game, and it is a card flicking game, and that is that you will set up a board with locations, and then you will take your cards and you'll flip them on the board, trying to use both the powers of the creature in your hand and also the locations as well in conjunction, and trying to gain as many of these little tokens that are the ones that, basically your victory points. You'll be taking those to grab faith, if you will. And so what happens is that each person will continue until you run out of cards and you can't continue any further, and then whoever has the most faith gets proclaimed by Zeus to be the most monstrous of the gods and wins the game. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but I want to show you how to play as I always do, but then we'll come back here and we'll talk to you more about Monstrous at that time. Alright, awesome. I've gone ahead and set up a game of Monstrous. Now these aren't the cities or the locations you have to use when you play the game. You get a big stack of these that you can use. And the big thing is that basically when these locations, they have a thing when they get hit, they'll give you things like Argos. When you hit this one, you gain 1 faith for each monster in your hand, and then also just for hitting it, you get the reward that's in the corner as well. Now that is so. A lot of interchangeability. You can go ahead and use whichever ones you want as far as the different locations, if you will. Each person will get the exact same deck of monsters. So you have these, you shuffle them up, and you pick one person and they will discard a certain number of these monsters equal to the number of players that are playing. And then everybody will then have to discard the exact same monster. So if you have 5 players, you will discard 5 of these monsters. And then after that is done, that is when you'll start to play. And so you pick a person, and I shouldn't say really discard. What happens is that you put them in the underworld that are over here. So you'll have cards over here, and you'll have cards over here. And this is the little player aid, and has both the location powers on one side, and then it has the monster powers on the other side. And so the thing is that they're in the underworld, they can possibly come into play. So it's one of the different options that you have. Like here, if I can find, like here is the underworld location. When hit, you draw a card from the top of any god's underworld. So you can just go ahead and take one of their cards that's over there. Now, whatever cards you have left, you'll shuffle those up, and everybody else will be different. You shuffle them, and then you'll draw 3 cards into your hand, and then you'll begin. So here, I'll just grab 3 cards at random here. And so you draw 3 cards, and on each card, they either have a thing that says hit location, you gain location's faith. On the back, it says hit monsters, gain 1 faith, hit location, gain 1 faith. Now that's the basic ability of each one. So just the Hydra, the Giant, and the Gorgon all have that same ability. But on the other side, it's like Gorgon, discard any monster that hits the Gorgon. The Hydra, hit monster, return hit monsters to the top of their god's deck. And then the Giant, as I said before, gain location's faith. So you'll pick one of these cards, and I'm not very good at this, and you get to decide. You want to throw it on which side you want to throw, and you'll try to hit one of the spots that's on the board. And so you'll just, you'll kind of just flip it like this. And I did, actually. Wow, that's pretty cool. And so the Giant hit that location and says gain that location's faith. So I would gain the 3 faith from that location. And then you also will check the actual location. It says, when hit, choose and discard a monster hitting a location. Well, in this situation, that wouldn't work. But let's just say, somebody else had their dragon over here. You could say, you're going to have to discard that dragon. And they're going to have to take it, and then they're going to discard that card. And then, the only thing that we didn't check for here is if we landed on a trap monster. But we didn't land on a trap monster because nobody else is gone, of course. But if you have a situation, remember I showed you that Gorgon. Let's say, there's a Gorgon there, and I throw this, and I Look at that. I'm doing pretty good at this right now. You land on the Gorgon. Well, the first thing you do is you check to see, and the trap monsters have the red border, if you will. And that means that you have to do those first. And so the Gorgon actually says discard any monster that hits the Gorgon. So then you wouldn't get anything for this because that's the first thing that happens. You don't get to do any of the other abilities, and you discard that. Now, sometimes you'll have situations here. I'll just kind of set this up so you can see how it works. So let's say there's a few monsters out here, like so, like this, right? And I'm just going to cheat here, and I'm just going to drop this one down. And so you will go and maybe you'll drop a dragon on top like that, okay? So right now, technically, let me back it up a little bit. Technically, the dragon is only touching these two monsters, if you will. And this is a little bit tricky that you have to keep everything in the same place, but everybody just kind of has to understand that cards are going to jostle just a little bit, but that's okay. So the dragon's ability is it discards any monsters that it hits. And so, right now, the dragon wouldn't score any points due to the fact that it hasn't scored the 3 points because it's not touching, technically, the location. So what you do is you take it, and of course I'm going to move the Gorgon. And so you remove that. Here we go. And then you remove this one. And so you remove those two, like so. And then you do the discard as it's done. And then you actually see, okay, now he is touching. So now if the ability of Athens is, and that's why you have the player aid, but you draw a card or gain 1 faith. And so you can take either a faith token or you can draw another card into your hand. Sometimes you'll land on a space or have a monster that allow you to do another turn, and you'll do that as well. But of course, then you gain the 3 faith from the location itself. The trap monsters are pretty powerful because obviously their power goes first, and so you have to use other powers like using Sparta to choose and discard a monster hitting another location, and so that's how you get rid of those. It might seem like it's kind of cheap if somebody drops a Gorgon on there, but that's the kind of the cool part of the game is that each person's monsters are good in certain locations, and they're good if you throw them first, and because the Gorgon isn't really good if there's a bunch of stuff on here like this. And then you throw the Gorgon. Well, that's not going to help you any because nobody's going to throw it there anymore. But if you get the Gorgon on there first, if you will, and so that's going to be really good. Now that's kind of how the game works. And so you have to actually figure out how to use the powers of the spots plus the powers of your monsters and combine it all together to really try to get as many of these faith tokens as you possibly can, because that determines who wins the game. And then after your turn's done, you do get to draw 1 more card so you can replenish your hand as the game continues. So the game will continue until one god has thrown their last card and has no cards left to draw, and then each one has 1 more turn. Each player has 1 final turn, and then it's time for Zeus to judge. Each god will total up their faith, and then they subtract 1 faith per card in their hand, deck, or their underworld, and whoever has the most faith will win. Now that's the basic game. There is a slightly different game. It's the legendary game, and what you have to do, pretty simple. You just have a different ability, a different spot, I should say, of Tartarus, and it allows you to draw a monster from the legendary monsters deck. And so what that is this over here, and this is not, the art hasn't been finalized for these, so bear with me as far as that's concerned. But these are legendary monsters, and they have, they're more powerful, if you will, like the Kraken and stuff like that. And the Kraken actually uses these tentacle cards as well, so they kind of get bonus cards. And so, and these, like the Minotaur, discard 1 hit monster, draw 1 card, and gain 1 throw. So, but the thing about these legendary monsters is they're only valuable, they're only good, I should say. They're very valuable, but they're only good the first time you throw them. They don't continue on being your monster. If you'll notice, each monster card has a border on it, and each one is a different color. And so, this here, so like this harpy, and that harpy, you can tell, one has a purple, and one has a blue. So I mean, you can actually tell the difference between who's monster, who's monster. But as I said, and I do like playing with Tartarus, because it's kind of cool to add those legendary monsters in it. But that only happens when you add this. And then so if you land a card in here, you get to draw a card from the legendary monsters deck, and then you can use them. But there you go. That is how you play Monstrous. It's a pretty cool little card flicking dexterity game. And let me tell you more about it in my conclusion. I'll do that right now. I would just like to say that when I actually was flipping the cards and I actually was getting what I was aiming for, that was the best I've ever done playing this. This is one of those games that it isn't really, really difficult to learn. It's like it's one mechanism, you throw the cards, but there is actually some really good choices that you have to make. As I was talking during the showing you how to play portion, when you draw those cards, you kind of have to like save the cards that are going to be better for the end, and use them at that point, and then you need to hopefully get those cards like the Gorgon, and get those trap guys out there early, so you can kind of poison a good spot, if you will, that somebody's going to be trying to take. There is a lot to be said about one of these games. This is definitely I'm not. There's a lot of interaction, obviously, because you're throwing your cards. But this isn't like an interaction with the game, so to speak. This is one of those trash talking, don't come after me, I'll come after you, like threats and stuff. So the kind of game beyond the game, as I mentioned in some of my reviews, that kind of adds to the atmosphere of the game and adds to the enjoyment as well. I mean, combined, like I said, it's just flat out fun. I mean, it's just one of those kind of trash talking type games that I enjoy, but also combine the really cool mythological theme and the really nice art, and this is an absolute winner. My gaming group loves it. My daughter enjoys playing it with me, and mostly because she can beat me at it. Yeah, so if you want to check out a pretty cool new take on the whole like card flipping and dexterity type game, I would strongly suggest you check out Monstrous and see if it's a game you'd like to add to your gaming shelf, if you will. So, thank you as always for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about Monstrous, please, by all means, ask away, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And, as always, until next time, you have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.